Look at almost any camper or RV on the road today, and they all look the same. But back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, nobody had figured out the rules yet. Car makers, backyard builders, even aircraft engineers were all trying to solve the same problem. How do you fit a kitchen, a bed, and a bathroom onto a normal truck? And with no rule book, some of them built something brilliant. In this video, we're covering the 10 strangest campers ever built, from unique designs to campers that make no sense at all. We start at number 10 with the Toyota Sunraider 4x4. Out of everything on this list, it looks the most like a normal camper. But the clever part is how the builder, Gardner Pacific, fixed the problem that ruined most motorhomes back then. Most were built from wood framing wrapped in thin aluminum. As you drove, the frame would flex, the seams would open, and water would get in and rot the wood from the inside. Gardner Pacific skipped all of that. They molded the whole body out of two big fiberglass halves and bolted them together down the middle, like a clamshell, so there were no seams for water to sneak through. They mounted it on a Toyota Hilux 4x4 with the tough little 22R 4-cylinder engine so it could crawl down narrow forest trails that would trap a full-size motorhome. Inside, they used every inch. A bed tucked over the cab, wood cabinets, a big 30-inch stainless sink, a 3-way fridge, a propane cooktop, and enough insulation to camp in it year-round. Back in the 80s, one cost around $15,000 to $22,000. But the early ones had a serious weak spot. The rear axle was only built for half a ton, and the weight of the fiberglass body, the water tanks, and all your gear was too much for it. Axles started snapping under load. Toyota had to recall them and bolt in a heavy-duty 1-ton axle to fit it. Those fixed 4x4 versions are the ones people want now, and they sell for anywhere from $25,000 to well over $45,000 today. At number 9 is the Dodge Travco, and it came from the man who actually invented the words motorhome. In the early 60s, Chrysler teamed up with a builder named Ray Frank. Chrysler gave him heavy Dodge truck frames, and Frank dropped a smooth, rounded fiberglass body on top that looked like nothing else on the road. People either loved it or thought it looked like a spaceship. Because that fiberglass shell couldn't rust or rot, these things basically refused to die, and plenty are still running today. Under the front sat a big block V8, anywhere from a 318 up to a monster 440, because it took real muscle to move a rig that weighed up to 14,000 pounds. Driving one was a workout. A strong side wind could push you across a lane, so you were always correcting the wheel. Inside though, it felt like a living room from 1965. Real wood cabinets, seats that folded flat into beds, rooftop air conditioning, a full kitchen, and its own bathroom with a working toilet and shower. It sold for around $9,000 new. These days, because they're so big and thirsty at the pump, they're actually one of the cheaper classics here, going for $10,000 to $22,000. Big as it was, the Travco was still just a truck with a body on top. Number 8 is the GMC Motorhome. And it's the odd one out for a simple reason. General Motors built the entire thing in-house. Every other company on this list bought a truck frame and hired someone else to build the body. GM did all of it, and the engineering was ahead of its time. They took the front-wheel drive setup from the Oldsmobile Tornado, put a 455 V8 up front, and sent all the power to the front wheels. With no drive shaft running to the back, they could drop the whole floor down low and flat. At the rear, they ran 2 wheels on each side with an air suspension that soaked up bumps, leveled the rig automatically as you drove, and could even be raised or lowered from the driver's seat to sit flat at camp. All of that gave it a low center of gravity, so it drove more like a big car than a bus and cruised happily at 70. Inside was full 70s style. Soft seats, shag carpet, big wraparound windows, overhead bins like an airplane, a full kitchen, a bathroom, and a back lounge that turned into a bedroom. There was just one problem, and it wasn't GM's fault. It launched in 1973, right as the oil crisis hit, and this thing drank fuel at 8 to 10 miles a gallon. GM built about 13,000 of them, then pulled the plug in 1978. One sold for $18,000 to $35,000 back then, and today they go for $15,000 to $30,000. That one was big and low to the ground. The next builder went the other way and put a camper on a truck that could climb straight off the road and into the woods. And before we get to number 7, I just started this channel and this is the very first video. So if you're enjoying these, hit that subscribe button. It's a small thing for you, but for a brand new channel like this one, it genuinely means a lot. At number 7, the Chevrolet Blazer Chalet. This one only existed for 2 years, 1976 and 1977, and it did something clever. GM took its rugged K5 Blazer, cut out the back wall of the cab, and bolted a pop-up fiberglass camper right onto the bed. That meant you could be sitting in front of seats, turn around, and step straight into your kitchen and bed without ever going outside into the rain or cold. It rode on a short 4x4 chassis with a 350 V8 and low-range gearing, so it could crawl into spots a normal motorhome would never reach. For its size, it packed in a lot: a bench that folded into a double bed, a 2-burner stove, a sink, a small fridge, and the canvas roof that popped up to give you over 6.5 feet of standing room. Here's the catch: bolting 1,000 pounds of camper to the roof made it top-heavy, so you had to take it slow over rough ground or risk tipping it. When new, it cost more than the brand new Corvette, and GM built fewer than 1,800 of them. That rarity is why clean ones now sell for $25,000 to $40,000. Up to this point, everything on the list still looks like a camper. The next one was designed by the same engineer who built the DeLorean. Number 6 is the Vixen 21TD. And yes, the man behind it, Bill Collins, was the chief engineer on the DeLorean. He wanted to build an RV that drove like a sports car and sipped fuel instead of guzzling it. So he shaped the body in a wind tunnel until it was so smooth and low it could fit inside a normal home garage. In the back, he mounted a BMW turbo diesel engine paired with a manual gearbox. The whole thing weighed about 5,000 pounds and could pull nearly 30 miles a gallon, 3 times what a normal RV of the day managed. Inside sat a low, sporty cockpit, a small kitchen, a shower room, and a bed over the engine. To give you room to stand without making the roof too tall for the garage, Collins hinged part of the roof so it popped up at camp. It was a brilliant machine. It also didn't sell. Regular RV buyers took one look at the manual gearbox and the pop-up roof and walked away confused. The company folded after building just 587. One cost around $40,000 in 1986, and today these rare things trade between $17,000 and $36,000. Collins reinvented the RV using car parts. The next builder ignored cars completely. That brings us to number 5. The Clark Cortez, built by a company that had never made anything you'd sleep in. Clark Equipment made forklifts and factory machines. When their engineers built a motorhome in 1963, they built it like a machine, an all-steel body with the frame and shell as one solid piece. They also made it front-wheel drive, which meant no drive shaft running under the floor, so they could drop the whole floor down low and still give you room to stand up straight inside. Inside was a flat, simple layout with a kitchen, a dinette, a bed, and a small bathroom. The trouble was weight. All that steel pushed it past 7,000 pounds, and the little Chrysler 6-cylinder engine in the early ones really struggled to drag it up a hill. Later versions got proper V8s to fix that, but the real problem shows up today. Clark built its own special gearbox for this thing, and when the company stopped making motorhomes in the late 70s, the spare parts stopped too. Break that transmission now, and you may never find another. Add in rust, and that's why a Cortez stays cheap, $8,000 to $19,500. A forklift company building a steel camper is strange enough. An actual aircraft engineer built a motorhome so light you could change its tire with a normal car jack. Number 4 is the Ultra Van, and it looks like a giant aluminum jelly bean rolling down the highway. It was built in the early 60s by David Peterson, an aircraft engineer who'd worked at Boeing. Instead of a heavy box on a truck frame, he built the camper the way you'd build a plane. The aluminum skin was the frame. There was no separate chassis underneath. That made the whole 22-foot motorhome weigh under 3,400 pounds empty, lighter than a lot of regular cars. Because it was so light, it rode on normal passenger car tires, so if you got a flat, you could jack it up and change it on the shoulder like any car. Peterson thought of everything. The front wheels could turn so sharply it had a tighter turning circle than most pickup trucks, and the suspension arms doubled as the basis for the front seats. Power came from a small air-cooled engine in the back. Inside it felt bright and open, ringed with big airplane-style windows with a kitchen, a rear bedroom, and a clever bathroom that reused the water from the sink and shower to flush the toilet. One sold for around $7,000 to $9,000 back then. Today, collectors pay $18,000 to $38,000 for these flying saucer campers. Peterson at least built a full-size motorhome. The next 3 builders went smaller, stranger, and a lot harder to explain. Number 3 started life as a regular Volkswagen Beetle. At number 3, the Volkswagen Superbugger. When you picture a VW camper, you think of the classic bus. But in the early 70s, a small California company started with a regular Beetle instead. They cut away the Beetle's body behind the front seats, kept the front end and the floor, and built a little wooden camper onto the back. The camper didn't add much weight, but the Beetle's tiny 60 horsepower engine still had its hands full, so steep hills turned into a slow, patient crawl. The inside was smarter than it had any right to be. The front seat spun around to face the living space, and the table dropped down to make a bed, with a shelf above it that worked as a bunk for a kid. The best part was the kitchen. The stove and sink sat on a sliding tray, and a hatch in the side let you slide the whole thing out of the vehicle, so you could cook outside instead of filling the tiny cabin with smoke. As a bare kit, it cost under $2,000 in 1975. Good ones now sell for $20,000 to $27,000. Cutting up a Beetle is bold, but at least someone at a company designed it. The next one was a build-it-yourself project off the cover of a magazine. Number 2 is the Boonie Bug, and this one you built yourself. In March 1974, plans for it landed on the cover of Popular Mechanics. The idea was one machine that could go off-road like a dune buggy, sleep too like a camper, and still drive home on the highway. You started with a VW bus chassis, cut about 16 inches out of the frame to lift it for rough ground, then welded a steel cage and shaped the body out of foam and fiberglass. With its sharp angled nose and sloped headlights, it looked like a prop from a science fiction movie set on Mars. Inside it was basic but well thought out. The driver sat right up, front over the wheels. There was space for 2 to sleep, and a big hidden storage area sat under the floor behind hinged panels. The magazine plans cost $15, and the parts ran about $1,000. Because everyone was hand-built in somebody's garage, the surviving ones are cheap for a vehicle this rare, usually $5,000 to $12,000. A homemade Mars buggy is hard to top, but the number 1 camper on this list makes every other one look completely normal, and it's one you have to see to believe. At number 1 is the 1966 Delray Sky Lounge. Everything else on this list, no matter how odd, was still trying to be a sensible camper. This one wasn't. Most campers that slide into a truck bed give you 1 floor. This one gave you 3. Yes, 3 levels stacked on the back of a single pickup truck. From the outside, it already looked like something that shouldn't exist. The lower half was a fairly normal slide-in camper, wrapped in shiny quilted aluminum. But sitting on top of it, hanging right out over the truck's cab, was a whole second cabin ringed with big panoramic windows. Because so much of it pushed forward past the bed, the builders had to run metal struts down from the front of the camper to the truck's cab, just to brace the giant overhang so the thing didn't sway itself apart on the road. The top cabin was the whole point of it, and it's where the name comes from. Delray called it the Sky Lounge. It sat up above the driver, and inside were forward-facing seats behind those wrap-around windows. So while you were driving down the highway, a passenger could climb up into the Sky Lounge, sit up high above the cab, and watch the road roll out in front of them, almost like the top deck of a bus. At night, the same seating folded flat into a bed, and above all of that, the very top of the camper was a flat deck you could climb out onto and sit on when you were parked up at camp. So there's your 3 levels. The living space down below, the Sky Lounge up over the cab, and the deck on the roof. Down on the main floor was everything you'd expect from an actual home. A U-shaped dining area you could fit the whole family into, a kitchen fitted out in sea green appliances, that perfect slice of 1960s color, and a small bathroom with a working toilet and shower. On paper, this thing had more living space than almost anything else on the list. The problem was physics. Stacking a second window cabin that high, way out over the front of a 1960s pickup, did exactly what you'd expect. It made the whole thing top-heavy, with a lot of weight sitting up high and hanging forward over the cab. Every corner and every gust of wind pushed all that weight around, and those old truck springs were never built to carry a tower like this down the highway. And yet, somebody designed it, built it, sold it, and actually drove it. Delray was the biggest truck camper maker in America by the late 1960s, so this wasn't some one-off backyard build. It was a real product you could walk in and buy. Back then, the camper on its own went for around $1,500. Today, on the rare occasion a complete one still bolted to a vintage truck comes up for sale, it goes for $15,000 to $22,000. And people line up just to look at it because there's genuinely nothing else like it. And that Sky Lounge tells you everything about the time it was built. It was the 1960s. the height of the space age era, when people genuinely believed the future was going to be bigger, taller, and stranger. Nobody had told them no yet. A glass lounge sitting up over the cab wasn't seen as reckless back then. It was seen as the future. So the Del Rey wasn't built by someone who didn't know any better. It was built by someone who looked at a normal one-floor camper and decided the only thing wrong with it was that it wasn't tall enough. A 3-level home with its own glass lounge in the sky, riding on the back of a pickup truck. That's where the imagination of these old builders finally ran out of road. Looking back at all 10, it's amazing what people came up with before anyone agreed on how a camper should look. An aircraft engineer built one out of airplane skin. A forklift company welded one out of steel. And somebody actually stacked 3 levels onto a pickup truck. So which one grabbed you most? Would you take the featherweight Ultra van across the country or crawl into the woods in the Toyota Sunraider? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this, stick around and subscribe for more strange corners of automotive history.